Avionews had the opportunity to interview Philip Perrotta, partner of the law firm K&L Gates, and one of the most important lawyers in the field of aviation, with successful transactions regarding airplanes, aircraft leasing and financing. Mr. Perrotta, would you please tell us about your role?
I spend my days working in aviation on a global basis. We work with and for a number of aviation clients worldwide, ranging from flag carriers on the airline side, major leasing companies and very significant bank and equity providers on the financing side. So we're very familiar with the global aviation market, the global aviation arena, and the contemporary problems and difficulties that require solutions.
Mr. Perrotta, what are your interests in Italy?
Italy as an interesting aviation market is well established. It's a big aviation heritage with a number of very long established operations and interesting investments. And it's a market which not just my firm but many other legal and professional firms have been actively involved with for a number of decades now, not just years.
As an expert and being responsible in your field, what do you think of Alitalia today?
A very short question, very long answer. I'll try and be brief. It's a very sad situation which everybody is, I think, aware of. The complexity surrounding the business at Alitalia has not become more simple after the entrance of Etihad into the story 3 years or so ago. It's not a situation which is easily resolved. I think everybody is aware of the different factors, the different reasons for the current development, but it's one which everyone is very interested in observing as to whether a solution can be found even at this late stage.
Should you give an advice to the Italian government, what would you suggest to get out of this dead end?
It's really not for me to recommend anything to the Italian government, but I think it's obviously a strategy involving a private partner like Etihad, which hasn't functioned in the way that everybody expected. Whether that's a question of the wrong partner or the wrong strategy is a debate. It's a question. What is clear is that the Italian government, I think, has a big reason to try everything possible to stabilise the situation and give the opportunity for what is still a big brand, a big name, and underlying all the problems, a big business, every chance to be born again.
Mr. Perrotta, if today you had to give a suggestion to Alitalia's management about the mistakes made in the past, what would you correct or what would you suggest to revise? Do you think costs should be revised?
Well, the question of costs is obviously at the very top of the list. There are clearly some mistakes which have been made historically around the leasing costs, the cost of maintenance, the overall cost to the operation of maybe an extended crew pool. From an external perspective, there is probably the perception of a very mixed strategy when it comes to the fleet development. The number of aircraft types that are contained in the fleet today seem to be slightly unsynchronized with an operation of Alitalia's intentions. And then we come to the intentions of Alitalia and their route network. I mean, from the perspective, for example, of a leasing company, what is their strategy? What type of airline do they want to be? What are they trying to become? It seems a very confused strategy externally. So I can only imagine that internally they are still having many problems deciding which direction to go. And as time moves on, without clear strategy being communicated to the market, it makes the job much more difficult to convince people that there is a stable future to work with.
If you had investors today, would you finance Alitalia?
Under certain circumstances, in certain conditions, probably. which is not a very positive answer. I'm very aware of that. Going back to what I was saying about a lack of strategy being communicated clearly to the market, I think that causes doubts, it causes concerns, and the market, in terms of the financing markets, money does not like risk, or if it does like risk, it causes money to be paid for risk. So Alitalia is caught in the middle of a debate between a lack of clarity and expensive costs, and it has to find the way through that to stabilise and to survive.
Mr. Perrotta, you know that maintenance is very important for an airline, actually for all air carriers. What do you think about the possibility to create an important maintenance site in Italy, like Atitec or AMS, in a strict collaboration with Alitalia and also with other airlines?
Italy as a country full of very capable, very mature, very dependable engineering and broader business capability is clear. That means the quality of the work, the quality of the service is available. What is a problem for those businesses is the environment that we are talking about in terms of the risk that external investors see investing in those businesses in an environment where the ultimate direction of the industry in Italy is uncertain. Until that clarity comes through from Alitalia, from a lot of dependent suppliers, dependent customers of businesses like that, it's going to be very difficult for those organisations to develop in a positive way. But quite clearly the potential remains even after all this time, and one hopes that one will see that start to develop in a positive direction under a clear leadership and guidance, which starts with the customer base ultimately, and we're back to Alitalia again.
How does your firm look at the Italian industry?
Italy is a fantastic opportunity for many people in terms of the aviation business and the ability of the infrastructure to develop and the opportunities to really underpin what Italy is trying to do as a country. So in other words, there is a very strong macro-political dimension to this. And organisations such as my firm, we are very interested in helping support that, to develop that, by making people aware of the opportunities, by allowing them to measure the risk and take calculated risks on businesses which until now have probably suffered because of that lack of clarity and that lack of visibility and understanding. And we very much look forward to the ability and the opportunity to do that in the next few years.
Mr. Perrotta, some time ago you came here to Italy to renegotiate the leasing of Alitalia's aircraft, also with the presence of the Italian Ministry of Economy. Why did you renegotiate the leasing? What were the reasons for that?
In general terms, for leasing, obviously it gives an operation like Alitalia the ability to make short-term as well as long-term decisions about its fleet development. And in a very dynamic marketplace like today, where the competition is so intense, it's important to have that ability to mix long-term and short-term strategy. Leasing as an opportunity for Alitalia is something which is clearly available. Historically, some of the decisions made about the leasing and the length of the leasing, the cost of the leasing, the ability to supplement leasing with some of the maintenance costs that are being extended, there's obviously a historical problem in terms of how those things combine. But as a potential jurisdiction for good business for leasing companies, Alitalia is still very much available, and one hopes that again with a clear strategy communicated to the leasing market, those opportunities will come again.
So, were you afraid that Alitalia could no longer be able to pay its leasings?
Obviously the leasing costs are a major burden for an operation like Alitalia. It's probably the case that the leasing costs combined with the other fleet costs are excessive. When one looks at the fleet of Alitalia today and sees so many different types of aircraft leased from so many different lessors and different financing institutions, one has to question whether the efficiencies that are available to a big operation like Alitalia have really been focused on and really realised, and personally I would doubt that, which in turn creates an opportunity to resolve and to develop. but that really depends on the decisions that are now being made as regards the future direction of the business.